My name is Adam Cole. I'm 38 years old, former Marine. Now officially, I'm just a cybersecurity consultant working from home. That's what my wife thinks anyway. And I let her believe it. The truth? I work for the FBI, domestic intelligence, and counterinfiltration, covert work. The kind where you don't wear a badge or carry a gun in plain sight. The kind where you keep your real life compartmentalized, for your safety and for theirs. Rachel and I have been married for 5 years. She's smart, charismatic, beautiful in that effortless kind of way. We met at a coffee shop in Georgetown. She was doing freelance digital marketing. I was 2 months back from a rotation overseas, transitioning into field intel with the Bureau. There was something magnetic about her, calm, collected, sharp. She asked almost nothing about my past, which at the time felt like a relief. We got married within a year, bought a modest 2-story home in Maryland, golden retriever, matching toothbrushes. It looked perfect from the outside. And for a while it felt like it. But subtle things started to shift. Rachel began working later. Switched to a second phone. Work only, she said. Stopped using our shared laptop, changed all her passwords, stopped asking where I was going or when I'd be back. I noticed it all, but I said nothing. That's not how I work. In my world, silence is a weapon. You don't move until you understand the terrain. And I was still mapping hers. It was a Thursday night when the mask slipped. I woke up around 2:13 a.m. I remember the exact time because I looked at the clock when I reached across the bed and found it empty. Rachel wasn't there. I figured she might have gone to the kitchen or the bathroom, but something didn't sit right. That old feeling in my chest, the one I got right before things went south overseas. It's like gravity shifts just slightly, just enough to let you know danger is near. I moved quietly through the hallway, barefoot, no sound. The Marine in me never left. Downstairs I heard her, in the kitchen, lights off, voice low, talking on the phone. I stopped at the edge of the staircase, leaned against the wall and listened. Not yet. Soon. When he's least expecting it. Pause. No mess. It has to look like an accident. I already updated the policy, he doesn't even know. My heart didn't race. My breathing stayed level. That's how I've always known the difference between panic and clarity. She was talking about, my wife was planning my death and she had help. Another pause. I know what I'm doing. He trusts me. That's the best part. She laughed softly. That laugh echoed through my chest like a bullet. She hung up. I moved back upstairs before she saw me. Slid into bed. Slowed my breathing. Pretended to sleep. She slipped back under the sheets a few minutes later. Her skin was cold. She smelled like mint toothpaste. She kissed my forehead, whispered, "I love you." I didn't flinch, didn't answer, didn't move. But something inside me had shifted. And not in anger. No, this wasn't anger. This was focus. She had no idea who she had just betrayed. She thought I was just her husband. She forgot I was a Marine. She never knew I was FBI. And now, she'd just crossed the line. The morning after she planned my death, Rachel made pancakes. Blueberry, my favorite. She even added cinnamon, like she used to during our first year of marriage. She smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and asked how I slept. I told her I slept. Fine, because that's what she expected. I chewed slowly, measured every movement. I had the kind of expression that could pass a lie detector. Years of training, war zones, interrogations, dead drops, teach you one skill above all: control. Emotional silence. I wasn't married to a woman anymore. I was living with a hostile actor. That's how I had to frame it, not emotionally, tactically. After breakfast, she left for yoga, one of her new routines that conveniently never showed up on any schedule or had any proof of existence. The second the front door closed, I activated the fail-safe protocol. Top shelf of my office cabinet. A small, nondescript gray box labeled router parts. Inside, a slim hard drive with backdoor access to every device in this house, including hers. Rachel never knew that the Wi-Fi I set up for her work devices was filtered through my secondary firewall. She also didn't know I had mirrored her phone months ago, back when her patterns started to change. Not because I suspected murder, just because I was trained to notice when people become someone else. That backup gave me access to every message, every call log, every keystroke. I reactivated the mirror software and let it sync. Within minutes, my screen lit up. Her call history was clean, too clean. She'd been deleting everything daily, which meant she was hiding something. Most people don't hide what isn't shameful, but the audio logs, the passive voice captures, those told a different story. Conversations in code, a man's voice, always at night. She'd saved him in her contacts under the name Kira, a fake assistant. He wasn't local, no last name, only burner numbers. I ran one of those numbers through a private bureau resource. Took less than a minute. Simon Vega, a person of interest in at least 3 ongoing federal investigations. Fraud, racketeering, suspected involvement in 2 missing persons cases where accidental deaths resulted in 7-figure insurance payouts. So that was the play. Rachel wasn't cheating, she was conspiring. The entire marriage had become a setup, or maybe it started as love and something inside her soured. Either way, it didn't matter anymore. What mattered now was this. I was the target, and I'd just become the only obstacle standing between Simon Vega and a multi-million-dollar insurance payout. I checked our joint policies. She'd updated mine 6 weeks ago. Beneficiary, Rachel Cole. Payout, $2.5 million. Clause, double indemnity in case of accidental death. Signatures, forged. She'd practiced. Copied my style, the angle of my strokes. But I knew my own penmanship like I knew the feel of a Glock in my hand. I could have reported her right then and there. But justice was never about speed. Not for me. It was about leverage, timing, precision. I didn't want revenge. I wanted revelation. She thought she was playing me. She didn't realize she'd just triggered a mission. And I never fail my missions. That night, I kissed her goodnight, brushed her hair back gently, told her I loved her. She smiled and said it back. The countdown had begun, she just didn't know it yet. 3 days after I heard her plan my death, Rachel was humming in the kitchen like nothing was wrong. She wore my t-shirt, danced barefoot across the tile while brewing coffee, and scrolled casually through her phone, the same one I'd already. And it was a surreal thing, watching someone plan your execution and smile at you like they still loved you. But in my line of work, compartmentalization isn't just a skill, it's survival. While she hummed Fleetwood Mac and made me breakfast, I sat across from her at the table, sipping coffee and studying her every move. She wasn't nervous. She was confident, which meant she believed she had control. And that told me she'd done this or something like it before. Later that morning, she left to meet a client. I waited 5 minutes, grabbed the keys to her car, and popped the trunk. Underneath the spare tire, I found it. A second phone. Locked, encrypted, but not impenetrable. Within an hour, I had it cloned and restored, then put it back in place like it was never touched. That phone changed everything. Photos of hotel rooms. Documents scanned from our insurance policies. Bank transfers to a shell company in Belize. Messages from Simon, including one that made my blood go cold. Tell him you love him a few more times. We need at least another week to make it clean. This wasn't a one-time thing. It was a system. I dug deeper. Used bureau access, off the books, of course, to run Simon's name again. His last known alias had been connected to a woman in Phoenix. She died in a boating accident 4 months after they started dating. No witnesses. Massive life insurance payout, same pattern. Another case, Denver. Woman slipped in her shower. Simon was her boyfriend. Another insurance claim. Another clean exit. Each woman had been described as married but distant from her spouse. Simon didn't target strangers. He targeted women looking for an exit strategy. And he turned them into accomplices. Rachel hadn't just betrayed me, she'd joined a machine. I cross-checked every digital trail she'd left for the past year. One domain kept popping up in her browsing history, a site called Eclipse Consulting. Officially, it looked like a boutique financial firm, but behind the paywall, it was a blueprint for financial disappearance, asset laundering, identity reformation, and fake death logistics. She'd been studying this for months, and she wasn't just faking my death. She was planning her own escape. Afterward, it was methodical, ruthless, and stupid, because in her arrogance, she forgot one thing. I wasn't just another husband with a laptop job and a mortgage. I was a soldier. I was trained for war. And now I had the map to hers. I printed every message, every forged signature, every file tied to Simon and Eclipse. Logged every movement Rachel made for the next 48 hours. Every yoga class, every client meeting, every late-night shower call. She wasn't trying to hide anymore. Not really. She believed she'd already won. And that told me it was time to move to phase 2. The trap wouldn't just be about proving guilt. It would be about making sure she and Simon knew exactly who they had tried to kill. Not just a man. Not just a husband, but a ghost with a badge, a blade, and no fear of silence. They say revenge is best served cold, but I've always preferred it methodical. Precise, untraceable, and dressed in silence. After I confirmed Rachel's plan, my objective shifted. This wasn't about emotion anymore. This was an operation. The first step was legal lockdown. Using an encrypted bureau terminal, I quietly placed flags on my personal records, life insurance, property titles, bank accounts, pension data. If anyone tried to access or move anything in my name, I'd get an alert before the ink was dry. Second step, control the narrative. Rachel thought she was clever, that I'd die quietly in some staged accident, and she'd collect a 7-figure check while sipping wine in another country with Simon Vega. She had no idea I was about to vanish on my own terms. I needed them to act, but on my timeline, not theirs. So I staged a trip, told Rachel I was flying to Denver for a week to meet with a cybersecurity firm. I even showed her the fake itinerary I created, right down to the flight number and rental car confirmation. She smiled. Too easily. Be safe, she said. Text me when you land. I kissed her on the forehead and walked out the door, but I didn't board a plane. I drove 40 minutes north and checked into a secure bureau property under a different name. From that house, I set up my command post. Every room in our home had been bugged days before. Rachel's phone, computer, and second burner were mirrored. I knew where she went, who she called, what she said when she thought I was 1,000 miles away. Within 6 hours of my departure, Simon was at the house. He entered through the back door, which she left unlocked. He didn't speak much, didn't have to. Rachel walked him upstairs. They laughed. They drank wine from our anniversary set. They planned. He asked, "How soon?" Rachel replied, "He'll be back Friday, Saturday." "Night is best," Simon nodded. "I'll handle the mess." The way they said it, like they were planning a dinner party. Like my death was just another item on a shared to-do list. I recorded everything. I watched the footage on a screen the size of my palm, sitting in a dark room with my knife in one hand and a legal pad in the other. No emotions, just data. Tactical. They were going to stage a break-in. Simon would enter late Saturday night, masked, armed. A fake robbery gone wrong. Rachel would find me the next morning and call it in with tears ready. They thought it would be clean. It wouldn't be, because by Saturday night, the entire layout of that house would be a trap. I mapped every angle, every exit, every blind spot. Moved furniture, placed sensors, armed backup cameras, and most importantly, I set up a dead zone upstairs where I could wait, completely invisible to the main feeds. Simon wouldn't see me coming. And Rachel? She'd be asleep, thinking everything was under control. What she didn't know was that I'd already forwarded the footage to a trusted bureau contact under a sealed folder titled Operation Ghostlight. A file that would only be opened if I went dark for more than 48 hours, which meant this wasn't just personal anymore. This was federal. and they were both about to learn what it felt like when the ground shifts beneath your feet, and the man you buried comes back as the one, holding the shovel. Saturday night came fast, the kind of night that feels too quiet, too still, like the world is holding its breath for something it doesn't yet understand. I was already in position by 7:45 p.m., dressed in black, seated on the floor in the corner of the upstairs guest room, motionless, waiting. I knew Rachel had taken her usual sleep aid, 2 pills with a glass of wine, at exactly 9:12 p.m. I watched her routine from the tablet on my lap sync to the bedroom cam. She didn't suspect a thing. At 10:46 p.m., the back door clicked open. Simon had arrived. He wore gloves, all black, boots with a soft sole, and a ski mask. Textbook amateur confidence. He carried a 9mm with a suppressor, cheap, aftermarket. Not bureau grade, sloppy. He moved like a man who thought he had the advantage. The kind of man who'd killed before but never met real resistance. He bypassed the front hallway, crept up the stairs slowly. I heard every footstep, and I didn't move. Not yet. He stopped outside the master bedroom, listened for a second, then stepped inside. From my feed, I saw him pause, maybe surprised that Rachel was actually asleep, maybe considering if he should wake her up first. He didn't. He turned toward my side of the bed. I wasn't there, and by the time he noticed, it was too late. I stepped out from the hallway like a shadow rising from the floor, silent, controlled. One hand holding a tactical flashlight, the other, my karambit. He turned, barely reacting before the beam of light hit his eyes. Full. Burst. He flinched. That gave me all I needed. I lunged, grabbed his wrist, the one holding the gun, twisted it down and out, disarmed in one motion. The weapon clattered to the hardwood floor. He swung wildly, connecting a forearm to my ribs. I absorbed it, let it flow through me, redirected his momentum and drove my knee into his stomach. He doubled over. He reached behind him and I saw the flash of metal, a short combat blade, steel grip. I stepped back. He charged. The world slowed. I pivoted, let his momentum carry him past me, then turned and locked my forearm around his neck. But he fought like a man who knew death was his only way out. He elbowed me hard, twice, broke my hold and slashed toward my chest. His blade grazed my side, shallow but sharp. I dropped low, rolled to my left, came up behind him, and in one fluid motion, I drew my karambit from the sheath clipped to my waistband. The blade curved through the dark like it knew where it was meant to go. One cut, not deep, but exact, right under the arm, into the soft meat between ribs. I didn't aim to kill, just to stop. He froze, dropped his knife, took 2 shaky steps and collapsed into the bedroom door. I kicked his weapon away, checked his pulse, weak, but there. He was breathing. I didn't speak. Not until I picked up his phone and unlocked it using facial ID. Rachel's messages were all there. Everything. I called 911 using my own phone. Calm. Clear. This is Adam Cole. My home was just broken into. The intruder is down. I am armed and holding position. When they asked if I required medical attention, I said yes. Not for me. For the man who tried to kill me. He's still breathing. For now. The sirens came quick. By the time the red and blue lights bathed the front of the house, Simon was handcuffed and barely conscious, pressed against the hardwood by 2 responding officers. I sat on the bottom stair, hands visible, calm, with a bloodied towel wrapped around my side and the karambit sheathed at my belt. Rachel stumbled out of the bedroom in a robe, mascara smudged, eyes wild with panic. Adam. What happened? Her voice cracked like she was trying to improvise on a stage she didn't know she'd walked onto, but I wasn't looking at her. Not yet. The paramedics came. They patched Simon up and wheeled him out. He didn't say a word, smart or maybe too broken to speak. I handed the officers the security footage on a flash drive, gave them access to the backup server, showed them the messages on Simon's phone, the ones between him and my wife. The ones she never expected anyone else to read. One of the officers gave me a look I'd seen before, back in Afghanistan, when we'd open a door and find betrayal behind it. "Do you want to press charges?" he asked. I nodded once. Absolutely. Rachel was still frozen in place, clutching her robe like it could protect her from what was coming. "Simon broke in," I said, looking at her finally. But he wasn't acting alone. He had help. Someone who gave him access, someone who planned every detail with him. She shook her head too fast. No, I don't know what you're talking about." I raised the phone, played the recording. Her voice filled the room, not in screams, not in panic, but in whispers. "It'll look like a break-in. He won't suffer. He'll just be gone." Her face drained of color. Her knees buckled slightly and she caught herself on the wall. But still, she tried to speak. You can't use that. That's legally obtained," I interrupted. "Recorded inside my house on my system during a premeditated murder plot. You'll be surprised how admissible that is." The FBI arrived 20 minutes later. I had already alerted my contact at the bureau once the scene was secure. A man named Brennan, regional supervisor for high-risk domestic operations. He wasn't smiling when he walked through the door, but I knew he was satisfied. "Adam," he said quietly, "we've had eyes on Simon Vega for years. Couldn't pin him to anything solid. But this is everything." He turned to Rachel. "And you just made yourself part of it." She was processed in the living room, handcuffed while standing next to the wedding photos she had once insisted we take professionally. She didn't cry. Not then. It wasn't until they read her the charges: conspiracy to commit murder, insurance fraud, forgery of federal documents, and aiding a known fugitive, that her voice broke. "I loved you," she whispered. I didn't answer. Because love isn't what you feel when you plan someone's death. Love doesn't look like signed documents in someone else's name. It doesn't smell like blood on the carpet where your husband was supposed to die. And it doesn't come with a dollar amount printed under beneficiary. That night, after the house was cleared, I sat in silence, no lights. Just me, the faint smell of antiseptic where paramedics had cleaned the blood, and the weight of finality. She thought she knew me. But what she never understood is that men like me don't panic. We prepare. And when the line gets crossed, we end the war before the other side even knows it started. By Monday morning, the story had hit the news. FBI assists in arrest of alleged fraud ring operator and local woman in botched murder for insurance scheme. They didn't use our full names, at least not at first. But anyone who knew Rachel recognized the photo they pulled from her old real estate blog. Polished smile, white blazer, arms crossed in front of our old house. A house that now sat silent behind crime scene tape. The headlines went national within 48 hours. Simon Vega was named formally as the suspected architect of multiple fraudulent deaths tied to false insurance claims. 2 in Arizona, 1 in Colorado. My case, it turned out, was the thread that finally pulled the whole fabric loose. Simon, in custody and nursing a puncture wound under armed watch, tried to make a deal. He confessed to everything: the plans, the previous targets, the offshore accounts, even naming the doctors who forged death certificates in other cases. But he didn't protect Rachel. He gave her up completely. She was listed in the official report as a co-conspirator with direct financial motive and deliberate involvement in planning the death of her spouse. My name never appeared in the press. Just an unnamed federal operative. The Bureau made sure of that. I didn't do interviews, I didn't talk to the press, I didn't celebrate. I just gave my testimony to internal investigators, handed over the audio logs, the video files, the phone data. I didn't hide anything. I didn't need to. Justice this time didn't need a speech. Rachel was denied bail. The prosecutor argued she was a flight risk, with connections to foreign accounts and history of using aliases. She sat behind glass, in an orange jumpsuit, while her lawyer tried to spin it as emotional instability. She didn't speak in court, just stared at me once when I was called to testify. Not with rage, with disbelief. Like the lie she lived in had finally shattered. And she couldn't understand how. I didn't return the look. because I wasn't staring at my wife anymore. I was staring at a stranger. Simon pled guilty to federal racketeering, fraud, and attempted murder. He faced 30 years, maybe more. Rachel's lawyer begged for a plea. In exchange for her full cooperation and restitution of all stolen funds, she could avoid a life sentence. But the deal came with a condition. She had to admit it all, every lie, every forged form, every message, every whisper over the phone. And she did. It was all recorded. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, she whispered, "I thought he'd never see it coming." She still didn't get it. I saw everything coming. Because when you've spent your life hunting liars, patterns become instinct. You stop believing in coincidence, you start tracking silence. In the weeks that followed, I moved out of the house. Couldn't stay. Every corner had a shadow of what might have happened. I boxed the photos, donated the furniture, signed the house over to the bank. The bureau offered me time off, a promotion even. I declined both. I didn't want a new desk. I wanted space. Space to process what it means when the person sleeping beside you was plotting your end, with a stranger who didn't even care enough to get your blood type right. Let them rot in courtrooms. Let the prosecutors sharpen their knives. My work was done, not because I broke them, but because I never let them break me. A year later, I live alone in a cabin 2 hours outside of Asheville. There's no internet here, no cameras, no digital noise, just the sound of wind through the pines, the crackle of firewood, and the occasional distant bark from my dog. A retired K9 named Ash I adopted 6 months back. He's quiet, loyal, doesn't ask questions. I still wake at 5 a.m. Some habits don't leave you, especially when they were built on survival. I stretch, run 3 miles through the trees, sharpen my knife after breakfast. I keep a bag packed in the closet, not out of fear, out of principle. I don't flinch at sounds in the night, but I still lock every door twice. Some scars fade, others become part of your structure. You don't see them in the mirror, but you feel them in how you sit, how you breathe, how long. You let someone hold eye contact before you look away. Rachel never wrote me from prison, but I did get a letter, handwritten, shaky cursive, from her mother. It said, "We don't understand how she became this, but we are sorry. For all of it." I didn't respond. There's nothing to say to people who stood by as she hollowed herself out. Simon took a plea deal. 32 years, no chance of parole for at least 20. Rachel got 18. With time served and good behavior, she might be out in 14. Maybe she'll change. Maybe not. But by then, I'll be long gone from any place she remembers. I don't hate her. Not anymore. You only hold on to hate when you still want something from the past. I've let that go. People sometimes ask how I didn't see it sooner. How a man trained by the military and federal law enforcement let his own wife run a scheme around him. But that's the trick, isn't it? We never expect betrayal to come in the shape of a kiss, in the rhythm of shared laughter, in the softness of someone saying, "I love you," as they sharpen the knife. But that's where the deepest lies live, in the places we stop checking. I don't stop checking anymore, not out of paranoia, out of discipline. What they tried to take from me wasn't just money or safety. It was belief. Belief that trust meant something, that a home could be a safe place. But they failed, because I didn't just survive. I watched, I listened, and I struck back in silence. There's something poetic about how it ended. No screaming, no bullets, just calm movements. One man prepared, the other pretending. She thought I was asleep. She thought I was ordinary. She thought I was weak, but I was the quiet storm waiting behind the door. And the moment she crossed the line, I didn't get emotional. I got surgical. Some nights I sit on the porch with Ash at my feet and a cup of black coffee in hand, watching the trees sway under the moonlight. I think about the life I almost lost, about the woman who smiled while planning my funeral, about the man who kicked down the wrong door. And I feel peace because I lived, and they'll spend the rest of their lives remembering the one thing they never understood. You don't bury a soldier. You don't outsmart the FBI, and you don't hunt a man who is trained to disappear. You just pray he never decides to come back.